Hello and welcome back to Litcast. In this episode we're going to be exploring the theme of secrecy and lies in An Inspector Calls. So, the inspector has the task of uncovering the truth and cutting through the lies that all the characters tell themselves, each other, and everyone else, including him. Now, Mr. Burling has no secrets. He sacked a girl for causing trouble, and he's quite open in saying that. And he says, I was quite justified. He genuinely thinks he did the right thing. As the play proceeds and he begins to see the possibility of his knighthood disappearing under the pressure of scandal, he then becomes alarmed. When Eric's theft is revealed, his first instinct is not an honest one. He says, I've got to cover this up as soon as I can. So his thoughts are all about reputation rather than honesty and truthfulness. Mr. Burling... Mrs. Burling is the only character who lies directly to the inspector when she claims she doesn't recognise the girl in the photograph. The inspector's immediate response, directly challenging that and saying, you're not telling me the truth, brings an outraged reaction from both Mr. and Mrs. Burling until Mrs. Burling is made to admit that she did see the girl and she did refuse her request for help. Mrs. Burling is also shown to be a hypocrite when it appears that one of the things that prejudiced her against the girl was that she felt she was telling a pack of lies just after she's lied to the inspector. And she refuses to believe that the girl was trying to protect the father of her child and uses this to excuse her behaviour. Like Mr. Burling, Mrs. Burling believes she was perfectly justified in the heartless way she treated Eva. And it is interesting that both of them say the word justified. And one of them says I was quite justified, one of them says I was perfectly justified. Again, showing that stubborn ignorance of the older generation here who genuinely think that their actions are okay. Priestley uses this hypocrisy of the Burlings to criticise the class system, which punishes the poor for the slightest evidence of dishonesty, while the rich are able to cover up and hide their lies behind a mask of respectability. And when you think about the other characters like Alderman Meggerty in the play that people know that have good social standing in society but do deplorable things, that do horrible things, that dishonesty and that disconnect between people whose role it is to help others in society and then the kind of things they do, which is exploit others in society, it really shows that this idea of secrecy, lies, deception, it's endemic in the society that the Burlings and Eva Smith live. So that's just a few brief notes on secrecy and lies in An Inspector Calls. Now, it is worth noting that there are several other themes that we're not going to explore in detail with individual episodes, simply because they are so intrinsically linked to context. So it makes much more sense to brush up on context and then think about how that context links to characters and narrative, because naturally you'll draw out some of the thematic links that way. So An Inspector Calls is very much a play of strong contrasts, and that's where we quite often find our themes. So themes such as the class system, the rich versus the poor. And when you have strong opposition like that, you call them binary opposites or binary oppositions. And here we've got the rich and the poor. We've then got the employers and the workers. We can have innocence and guilt. We can have blame and shame. We can have appearance versus reality, love and lust, the older generation and the younger generation, men and women. So all of these binary oppositions, all of these contrasts can form the basis for thematic links, because what Priestley is trying to do in this play is demonstrate that this high contrast society causes issues and problems, and what he wants is this more equitable society where everyone, as he says, is responsible for each other. So we've come to the end of our little series of themes in An Inspector Calls. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to hear anything else when it comes to An Inspector Calls, if you want any episodes on any aspect of the play, then just let us know by using the show notes, the messaging, or the voice notes function on Spotify, or the comments function on Apple Podcasts, or the comments function on YouTube. Or you can use the polls that we put up in our episodes to help us work out what you want to see next. We'll be diving back into heroes in the next couple of episodes, so keep an eye out for that. But once again, thank you very much for listening, and I will see you in the next one. Listening to Litcast, the podcast for GCSE and A-level revision. The music that you hear in this episode is called Galaxy and was written by Ixon, and you can find the rest of his music on SoundCloud. You can also find us on other social media channels, including YouTube, where you'll also find our Litcast live episodes. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope to see you again.